Hi, folks. Thanks for joining this session. What I'm going to be presenting is a set of techniques that you can work through with your team to get an improved sense of clarity and priority on what is really going to move the needle and what's really going to make a difference across your organization. And this can be applied to any target outcome, and I'm going to show you how. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I've been in tech for about 21 years, working through a variety of different positions and roles in software development and IT, all dedicated towards improving the flow of value to customers. And it wasn't always this way, but over time, I've started to realize that flow is a massive factor in getting what we want and sustainably getting what we want. And so flow engineering is really the product of all that experience and failure along the way. So for this presentation, I'm going to frame it in a little bit of a story. This is Sharon. She's going to be playing my boss in this scenario. And I'm going to be a software delivery manager or a VP engineering in the organization, aiming to improve performance. So we're going to be talking about clarity as a way of understanding where we are and where we're headed, value, how to get the most out of our efforts, and flow, how do we sustainably achieve results, and how do we scale them as well. So we're also going to be talking about mapping out what's inside our heads so that we can share that information with other people and get a better understanding together of where to go, what to do, what's most important. And then we're going to look at ways of bridging gaps between business and tech and leaders and peers and contributors, getting everybody on the same page. And then ultimately creating win-win-win scenarios. So I like scenarios where everybody wins. Flow engineering is set up to facilitate that. And that's what it's all about. So framing this scenario, we have a challenge, probably similar to a lot of organizations. Huge backlog of issues, and we need to go faster. We can't just keep chipping away at the backlog. We've got to accelerate. And so what's going to hold us back from that? A lot of these efforts, a lot of what we're trying to do is failing because we lack an understanding of where we are, where we're headed, and what's in between us and where we're going. And it really is a major factor that affects our ability to achieve flow and improve the performance of our delivery. We run into problems like different perspectives across the organization, even across our team. We have a lack of simple models that allow us to kind of reconcile that challenge, to have really high quality discussions that stick, that actually serve to move us forward and answer questions that we have, generate ideas, prioritize all the things that we could be doing and focus that to what's actually going to make the most difference. And we all know this by now. You can't copy another organization. You can't even copy your last success. You have to be generating solutions. You have to be generating ideas, solving problems according to your unique context. So how do we do that? And that's really where mapping comes in. Mapping, especially collaborative mapping, bringing people together to create maps, is highly engaging. It allows people to contribute who wouldn't normally have a voice at a conference table or on a Zoom meeting. It's inviting people to collaborate. And by building a map, we're sharing not only context, we're sharing ownership. So we're creating something together. That means it's more meaningful. And that's bringing us together. It's aligning different perspectives. It's bypassing some of our separate incentives to go work off on our own and then, bump up against people. We're bringing people together to solve problems together. So that's bringing us into alignment, and we start rowing in the same direction. It's highly customized. So as I said, you can't copy and paste your success from anywhere else. You're going to have to custom create solutions to your challenges and addressing your opportunities. And then when you're mapping, when you're doing this creative, hands-on work to create a map, everything that we learn sticks. It sticks because we're learning by doing. And all of this is remote friendly. All these techniques were kind of matured and created in many cases during the pandemic. So they're all remote friendly. They work whether one or everybody is remote. So this is what I call flow engineering. So the practice of this collaborative mapping activity is all done for the purpose of improving flow, improving the flow of work so that we can improve the delivery of value to customers, whether those customers are internal or external or partners, it really doesn't matter. So flow engineering looks like a sequence of collaborative mapping techniques, and we start from defining a clear outcome to understand where we're headed together and all have the same view of where we're headed. Then we look at the value stream as the way that we're working right now, the current state, and we can imagine ideal states and future states as part of that stage. Then we look at dependencies. What are the things that are affecting us from the outside, affecting the flow specifically from outside? And then capabilities as ways of evaluating and assessing what could be holding us back from inside. What are the things that we're going to need to level up? Do we have all the capabilities that we need to break dependencies, to improve flow? And it goes beyond this. There are more maps that we can include, but in the time that we have, these are the 4 that we're going to cover. So first of all, mapping outcomes. We're beginning with the end in mind, right? It always pays to step back and reassess where are we headed and how do we expect to get there. So this is exactly what mapping outcomes is all about. We start from a target outcome, but immediately after, we evaluate why is that outcome important. So in this case, we need to go twice as fast. We need to make sure that quality doesn't dissolve. But why is that valuable? Why is it valuable to us? Why is it valuable to the company? Why is it valuable to our customers? And what obstacles could get in the way of that? So before we set off in the direction of trying to accomplish our outcome, we're going to look at what are the things that we could step on along the way or trip over as we head in that direction. Then we look at investigations as ways of understanding more about our obstacles and our outcome. How could we best accomplish the outcome? How can we best move towards it? How can we avoid the obstacles on the way? And measures are going to show us how we're going to make progress, how we expect to make progress along that path. So that brings us to mapping value streams. So if we want to improve, if we want to work twice as fast, if we want to deliver value twice as often, then we're going to have to look at how we work today. We're going to have to measure our current state and understand what is happening, where are our bottlenecks, what are our constraints, and how we can improve the flow of work throughout the value stream. So what we're going to do is take a look at mapping the value stream. So when we create this map, we're laying out each activity in the process from start to finish, and we can frame this in the context of our specific team or in the broader organization. We can zoom this out to an entire release, or we can zoom it into a sprint. It really doesn't matter. It depends on your area of influence and what you're going to aim to accomplish. So in this case, we're looking at a pretty narrow scope just for the purposes of illustration, but you can see here that we're able to add measurement to this. So this is the magic of value stream mapping, is that we add measurement to the process. And so we're able to see how long each activity is taking and how much time is spent waiting between those activities. And that's going to give us an understanding of where we should be focusing. We're going to focus on the constraints, on the hotspots. Where are we taking most of the time? And we can use different layers for this, different lenses, different dimensions. We could be measuring quality if quality was our desired outcome. If improving value delivery was our target outcome, we could look at value. How much value are we adding in each activity? There's a number of different ways that we can use a value stream map to understand more about the way that we're working. We can illustrate roles and find out, if we were to add someone to the team, where would we be putting them? Where would we be best served by adding capacity? Or if we have to lose someone from the team, let's say, someone's going on vacation or somebody is moving to another role, how are we going to cover all the activities, all the capabilities that we need to deliver value? We can use a value stream map to figure that out as well. So here's another example. It's a little bit more detailed. This is a more realistic example. You can see the same features kind of represented here. We've got hotspots identifying where most of the time or complexity is located. We're also able to highlight where rework is happening, where are we throwing back work that's either not up to specifications or not up to our level of quality, not satisfying requirements. We're able to see what roles are present across the value stream, so we can see where people may be overloaded or where we might be able to streamline things because we have two activities back to back that are handled by the same person, or maybe they're handled by different people so they can be run in parallel. There's all kinds of information hidden in a value stream map, and the data is really what's going to surface those insights. So that's going to bring us to mapping dependencies. So back to our real life example, we highlighted a hotspot in environment setup. So we've got a focal point. We could be looking across the value stream at very different places, but we're going to pick the highest priority, highest value opportunity here. And environment setup was a major portion of the total lead time in the value stream. So we're going to start there. And when we start looking at dependencies, environment setup is pointing us towards infrastructure, which is not handled by our team. So no wonder we wait a long time for it to happen, and it's slowing down our progress. So knowing that, examining how all this fits together, what factors are affecting our bottleneck, we can go and do a little investigating. So we go investigate infrastructure, we go and talk to Ludo, and Ludo's our director of infrastructure. He's responsible for all the environment management, all the testing environments, production, staging, everything. And so you can imagine he's always swamped. He's always being distracted. He's always being pulled in different directions. He's got a giant backlog to deal with. And so he has to kind of ignore everything that comes across his desk, or else he'd be completely burnt out. So we can sort of dig into this a little and try and understand how can we help out Ludo so Ludo can help us out, right? We want to find a way to address some of Ludo's concerns so that we can speed up the environment management process and speed up our value delivery. So if we're looking at where we are at the moment, the business needs to go faster. We need to go faster. Ludo needs to go faster. Ludo cannot go faster because he's currently overloaded, and complaining about it isn't going to solve the problem. So what can we actually do? As I mentioned before, we can draw out a value stream map at any zoom level. So we can be zoomed way out to a release. We can zoom way out to the organization. We can also zoom in. So if we zoom into environment setup, what we're able to do is identify a few different areas that, if addressed, if we were to implement some simple automation, if we were to eliminate some waste, if we spend a little bit of time trying to improve the constraints in that section of the value stream, will address the constraint at our level, which will speed up our value delivery, right? So what we're able to do is, through a few specific interventions, improve our total time and address that constraint. So we're getting most of the way to our objective of twice as fast by making 3 simple fixes and what amounts to 1 day of pairing between my team and Ludo's team. So we're helping them out by reducing the work that it takes to provision environments. I'm able to lend Ludo's team some of my developer expertise. And as a result, we all go faster. And not only my team, but every product team is able to benefit from these results. So that's a big payoff for little investment. But if we want to go further than that, that's where capabilities come in. So let's say we want to address what is tying us to Ludo's team. Let's say we want to decouple that dependency or alleviate that dependency to a much higher degree. Maybe we want to take it on inside of our team so we don't even have to rely on Ludo's team to deliver any kind of infrastructure management for our purposes, or maybe a majority of our purposes. So what we're able to do with capability mapping is address dependencies by looking at what capabilities are being provided by those dependencies, and perhaps, if it's possible, internalizing those capabilities into our teams. But at the very least, we can understand more about them. And so what that looks like is identifying key capabilities that are tied to, again, our primary bottleneck. We're not looking at every capability. We're not looking at every dependency. We're only looking at the ones that matter the most, the ones that are specifically tied to what is slowing us down, where our constraint is, where our hotspot is. So we're able to look at each one of these key capabilities. This is a small sample, but again, we don't want to look at every capability, just the ones that will make the most difference. So we're able to see for each capability who owns that, and also importantly, who's a backup for that person? Who's going to be supporting that person if they want to go on vacation, or they get pulled away for some task, or maybe moved on to another team, or they're sick, or any number of things that happen. We don't want to be stuck in a situation where the one person who knows how to do something isn't available, right? So being able to highlight where we have backups, where we don't, is really valuable. Then we want to look at what's our internal skill level for this capability. Are we able to actually do it? Do we have the training? Do we have an understanding? Do we have support resources? Do we have things like documentation or access to APIs? Have we created a playbook for accomplishing this task on a regular basis? All these are really important to understand. Are we ready to take on this capability? Is this something that we should be internalizing into our team? And for what scenarios, right? It might be a case where 80% of the time we can handle it, and then 20% of the time we send it back to the infrastructure team. But that means 80% of the time we're moving much faster. And that's really valuable. So by looking across all these dimensions of capability, we're able to assign a score to each capability and create a stronger understanding of what are we able to do to address our constraints, our dependencies, and improve our workflow by moving at top speed. We're always going to move fastest if we're doing things inside of our team that we're fully capable of delivering. So understanding what that looks like, understanding what it's going to take to get there is really important. So a capability map helps us produce this visible asset that we can take to other groups. We could take this to leadership and ask to either hire for a position, maybe bring on a trainer or a consultant to help us out. But we're able to make a really strong case by using all of these maps to paint a picture, to really clearly demonstrate, here's the value in addressing this specific constraint, and here's how we propose to do it. And that is something that I haven't seen anywhere else. That's what flow engineering is all about. So what this allows us to do is really provide a path or assist along the way this migration from Ludo's team being completely overrun and just fighting fires constantly to moving towards something like a platform team, right? We're able to apply the same techniques, the same mapping process and flow to Ludo's team that we run in the application development teams and the product teams. And Ludo's team can now move further towards becoming a platform team by adopting these same techniques. This desired outcome of improving agility and removing all of that firefighting, we can run through what does the value stream look like for Ludo's team? What does the value stream look like for the product teams? How do we balance the two so that we arrive at a platform as a service model, more self-service, more agile operations inside of each product team without overburdening anybody, without taking on extra work, and perhaps making things a lot easier and definitely faster. So how are we able to make any of the time that it's going to take to do this, right? This takes time. It doesn't happen for free. So in the case of Ludo's team, the way that they're able to make time is by doing a little bit of forensic analysis, looking at what is taking up most of the time in the team. What are the things they're constantly battling with repeatedly? What are the things that will make a big difference with a little bit of effort or investment? And what often happens is that once you map your value stream, you find that 20% of the value stream is easily addressable waste. We can just stop doing a few things, do some things in parallel, implement some simple automation, use something like a ticket system instead of email, Slack message instead of a ticketing system. There's all kinds of different ways that we can tackle things once we see how they're going to affect the flow. So, of course, there's any number of things that we can do. By having the mapped value stream and that one specific target, we're able to target our efforts and focus our efforts on what's actually going to make a difference, which means we can make time for it knowing that it's going to pay off. And we know how much time to spend on it. We know what it's worth. And it's especially valuable when we're working on something that is a common dependency across multiple product teams. It's very clear what the ROI for that scenario is going to be. So what's going to happen is we're going to work with Ludo's team to clarify goals. The goals are common goals, are individual team goals, see where they align, see where we can invest and address constraints that are going to help everybody. And then we're able to move through this simple process together to make a very strong case for where we should focus, whether or not we need outside investment or help, and how we're actually going to make a difference. And then the effect of this is that Ludo's team speeds up, my team speeds up, the organization speeds up, and we get to that twice as fast target. So what happens when we really invest in this, and this is a specific case example, what happens when we start moving towards a platform team, when we start focusing on common bottlenecks and dependencies, is that we get a lot more return on investment. We get a lot more done when we focus. We're able to reduce not only failures, but the time it takes to do anything. And what's going to happen when we do that, when we invest in platform solutions, when we invest in dependency mitigation, is that we're able to move that much faster, but we're also speeding up things like feedback and time to recovery and all those other positive changes that we like to see in the DevOps world. So to kind of wrap us up here and give you a high-level overview, flow engineering gives you a path from not knowing exactly where to focus, maybe having a bunch of pains and goals and ideas and questions, to a single clarified focal point. Maybe something to balance that out. Maybe you have a first priority and a second priority, but we go from everything that we could possibly do to something extremely valuable and clear. And then we look at how we're actually going to make that happen. We look at current workflow. We're able to not only look at a current state value stream map, but we can create an ideal state map. What would this look like if we could do anything? And a future state value stream map, what's it going to look like in 3 to 6 months? So we can start to sort of prototype different solutions, imagine what we're capable of. And then we can understand more about what's holding us back and more about our connection to the broader organization by mapping dependencies. And we do that by following the constraint, following the bottleneck. That one hotspot or those few hotspots that are really making a difference, we can focus on those and not have to map everything, right? This is a very lean process. We're only ever focused on first our target outcome, the constraints that are affecting our target outcome, the dependencies that are impacting those constraints, and then the capabilities that are going to address those dependencies. And through that combination, we're able to generate a number of ideas, a number of insights, a number of hypotheses on what's really going to make a difference, what's going to make the most difference. And we can form those into what I call a flow roadmap. And a flow roadmap is a little bit different than your product roadmap and your technical roadmap because it's talking about your workflow. It's talking about how you work, how you get things done. And so it's the only roadmap that's really about the system of work, about your processes, about your value streams. And so you're able to create a roadmap that not only identifies deliverables that are going to improve your outcome or move you towards your outcome, you're able to identify measurements for those specific deliverables. So how are we going to know that we're making progress towards those deliverables, that outcome? And then you decide what methods you're going to use. So once you've got your deliverables, your metrics for measuring progress, then you decide what's going to make progress the fastest, the most effectively. That's going to leverage our specific capabilities and understanding our constraints and what's currently slowing us down. So that combination takes you from we don't really know where we should focus or we don't really know what's going on, all the way to we know what to do tomorrow. We know how to measure the performance of that action. We know what to expect from it. And we know how we're going to accomplish it. So we go from foggy to absolute clarity, everybody being on the same page, everything being ready to go, where everybody can contribute and understand this is the most important thing. We're all focused on it. And once we solve it, we're going to move on to the next thing. And all of that happens with very quick, very effective, very clear collaborative meetings. So each one of these workshops, each of the maps is created in 2 to 3 hours. We can do them ideally synchronously, but this can all be done asynchronously as well. We can create these maps based on surveys, if people say that they have no time and they can't get together. But obviously we get the best results when we all come together and get them done. But luckily that doesn't take a lot of time and the return on investment is humongous. So if you'd like to know more about that, if you're curious, you can go to flow.visible.is and download my ebook. That's going to take you from start to finish through this process with a lot more detail. It's going to take you through the flow roadmap. It's going to take you through a few other options and ideas. When you sign up there, you're going to get my 7-day flow engineering course. It's going to walk you through all the material day by day. So every single day you'll get a little piece. You won't even have to read the ebook. You'll also get access to templates and everything you need to get started on your own. And I want to also invite you to inside-out.work, which is going to be chronicling mine and my co-author Andrew Davis's path towards publishing a book on flow engineering that's coming out next year. So we're working with IT Revolution to get that published. And in the meantime, every 2 weeks, we're going to be putting out an issue of the newsletter that's talking about flow engineering, talking about culture, talking about change, transformation, continuous improvement, collaboration, everything that it takes to succeed and deliver value in 2021 and beyond. So I hope you enjoy all of that, and I'd love to talk to you about it. If you're interested, you can reach out to me through the website, through either website, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks.